my mainland here, Fridays at 3 p.m. on Think Tech Hawaii. Today I have with me one of the members of Kailua Neighborhood Boards, of the Kailua Neighborhood Board, Vern Hinsvark. And Vern's specialty is monitoring the vacation rentals and the zoning. I've asked Vern on the show because there's this unease that sort of permeates everything that people who live here in Hawaii are faced with. The cost of living here and the quality of our neighborhoods. And probably nowhere on Oahu anyway is it more palpable than in Kailua. Vern is very lucky to be married to a dear friend of mine who grew up in the house that they live in now. So they've been there for a good long time and have seen the changes. So Vern, what motivated you to get on the neighborhood board?
Well, as my life started to slow down and I got a little more time, I started going to the neighborhood board meetings. And when I went to the meetings, I would speak my mind. And one of the people on the neighborhood board had some health issues and had to resign. So I was nominated, or I say inducted, into the neighborhood board. I've since won my first election. And so that's how I got into it.
So you guys have been dealing with this issue of vacation rentals. So I just did a little cursory research yesterday. VRBOs, there are 19,000 in the state of Hawaii, and those are only the ones that happen to be registered with VRBO. So I checked on your street, for instance, and they had 3, and you know that there are more than 3. So that was just a little checkup. And for Kailua, there were 1,678 just in Kailua alone. So that's a lot of housing units that are no longer available for local people or long-term rentals. So what's that like?
Well, that's why I have gotten involved with this, because over and over and over again, I hear the politicians trying to deal with homelessness and affordability of housing while we are renting all of our housing to tourists that come in and have no concept of what Hawaii is. It could be Florida as far as they're concerned.
So it's there was the Facebook page, My Kailua, which is kind of a community bulletin board, had a post just yesterday that spoke to that feeling of disconnect. And they were talking about the new prospective Roy's restaurant coming in, and here was the discussion, and they say, Kailua is different now. Last night at Maui Tacos, my girl and I were the only local people in the whole shopping center. Teddy's Bigger Burgers were all military and tourists, same thing at Maui Tacos. It was the only thing I noticed. And then my Kailua answered, to be a stranger in your hometown, it's a weird feeling. And Aaron Frank answered, it's hard to grasp when you're out and about. It felt like Waikiki to me. I have seen bumper stickers that say something like, save Kailua, go back to Waikiki. So it's the we are at the boiling point. We are boiling, I think.
Yes, as I was getting involved with this, I remember saying last September, it just sort of blurted it out. I said, this place is getting ready to explode because there's so much tension building in the neighborhood. And that's when I really started to get into the vacation rental business and seeing how it was affecting us.
So can you define what is it legal to do? What are the parameters?
Okay, first I want to give just a little history. That back in the 80s, there were a lot less people here, but the people that were here saw the same thing starting to happen. And in 1986, they started fighting to get a law passed. It took 3 years to pass the law that basically outlawed all new transient vacation rentals. In the state.
In the state?
I'm sorry, in Honolulu.
In Honolulu, in residential neighborhoods.
They outlawed all vacation rentals except in resort areas or within 3,000 feet of a resort area.
Okay.
And they grandfathered in the 1,200 and something that existed in Kailua at that time. And but once someone lost their license or sold their house or didn't renew it, then they could never get it back again. So through attrition, the 1,200 is now down to 58 legal units in Kailua.
Okay, there are 58 legal, there are 1,678 just on VRBO listed. Okay, so what is it?
So the definition of it is that you have to rent on the county laws, you have to rent for a 30-day period. Anything more than that is okay. Anything less than that is illegal. And it's not just a matter of having a contract that says you're going to rent it for 30 days. You have to rent it for 30 days. So that's something that's coming up now because people are trying to manipulate that.
What do you mean?
Well, for instance, people will advertise and they'll rent it for any period of time, but they'll tell you that you have to sign a contract for 30 days, but you can only use it for the 7 days that you paid for. So that's really not a 30-day rental, even if I saw one the other day that they said, okay, you have to rent this for 30 days, and you're only going to occupy it for 7 days. And if you wish to extend your stay, there's no guarantee that it would be available to you. So, I mean, and I saw this. I have a copy of it. But they're just trying to do that so they can say I'm legal because I'm more than 30 days.
So there's some newer legislation that has come into effect. So we had the Act 204. Would you?
Yeah, Act 204. We went through a lot of work last year, and Laura Thielen and in the Senate worked very, very hard. We spent a lot of money in legislative time and volunteer work and everything to get a law passed. That the main thing of the law is that you had to put an identification number on any electronic advertising, and that went into effect January 1. It was signed by
of this year.
Of this year. So that was signed by Governor Ige, and it went into effect on January 1/16. But the tax department hasn't enforced it. And they, I don't know what the reason is, but they just haven't done anything to enforce it. We recently had got in contact with people that are working in the tax department at the lower level and find out we started funneling them information. And they were so excited because they were getting information now. And
what kind of information?
Information about houses that are doing short-term rentals that have been reported. I mean, I might say one thing that I saw was a need for people to be able to report and still maintain their anonymity. Because nobody wants to turn in their neighbor because then their neighbor starts getting mad at them.
Right.
And there was a real need for people to be able to give that information and have their name scrubbed out of it. So I set up a website called stopillegalrentals.com.
Yes.
And
I have a screenshot of it. We'll get that up. So that's brand new, right? You just set this up.
I was traveling earlier in the year, and complaints were starting to come in because I had been talking about doing this. And then when I got back from traveling on February 22nd, I worked to set it up.
Okay, so now people can go to this website, stopillegalrentals.com, and they remain anonymous, and the DPP gets the information. And then, do you know what happens from there, Vern?
Yeah, I want to say, because we had posted this on My Kailua, and there were a lot of questions about whether or not who is collecting this information. But we are saying it is the Kailua Neighborhood Board, and we have a good working relationship with the Department of planning and permitting, which does the enforcement. And so I would get, or a report would come in to these group of volunteers, and we take out the email address. That's the only identifying thing. And we have that so that we can respond when we get a response. Then we send the report to the DPP, and we send a copy of what we sent to the DPP to the person who reported the complaint. If we get any response from the DPP, then we forward that response to the owners.
To the owners of the house?
To the complainants.
Okay. So what happens then once it's given to DPP? What does DPP do with the information?
Oh boy, that's a half-hour story. Well, they send out inspectors, and inspectors have, at the present time, they have to, they can't step foot on the property if there's a no trespassing sign. So a lot of no trespassing signs in Kailua now.
That will be the new mark of a vacation rental. It has a no trespassing sign on it.
That's exactly right. And then, because they can't go on the property, they have to kind of stake the property out and wait till they see someone who doesn't look local walk out and go up to talk to them and see if they can get them to say that they're renting short term.
Oh my gosh, this just doesn't sound like a place you want to call home, does it?
No, it doesn't. But it's interesting, since we started, we're getting more and more people complaining now. And everyone who complains, they get a response. We're getting more enforcement action done by the DPP, and it's encouraging more people to do it.
Okay, so that we talked about Act 204, which makes them put the transient accommodation tax number on the advertisement. But something interesting came up this session, House Bill 1850, that could kind of do away with the transparency that Act 204 did. Tell us about that.
Well, House Bill 1850 is affectionately called the Airbnb law, because Airbnb wrote the law and they got lawmakers here to introduce it. And it effectively says that they will take care of all the information, and they will collect the transient accommodation tax and the the general excise tax. So they will collect all that and they will give it to the state.
So basically, whoever's property it is there's a shield, there's a wall, firewall there. Their anonymity is protected. Okay, Vern, we're going to take a little break and then be back and talk about what's happening to the neighborhoods and vacation rentals.
All right.
Hello, I'm Marianne Sasaki. Welcome to Think Tech Hawaii, where some of the most interesting conversations in Honolulu go on. I have a show on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 called Life in the Law, where we discuss legal issues, politics, governmental topics, and a whole host of issues. I hope you'll join me.
Aloha, my name is John Waihe'e, and I used to be a part of all the things that you might be angry at. I served in government here and may have made decisions that affects you. So I want to invite you in. I want to invite you in to Talk Story with me and some very special guests every other Monday here at Talk Story with John Waihe'e. Come on in, join us, express your opinion, learn more about your state, and then do something about it. Aloha.
Words I have.
Aloha, welcome back to Hawaii is My Mainland. I'm Kaui Lucas, and with me today is a dear friend, Vern Hinsvark, who is on the Kailua Neighborhood Board. Not an easy position these days with all the contention. The neighbors who need the income to subsidize their existence in Hawaii, and then the neighbors who don't want to be living in a vacation land. So, Vern, before we went to the break, you were talking about House Bill 1850. So, what's happening with that?
1850 has been through quite a process, and through the legislative process, it got enforcement tools were inserted into the law in the House version. And then when it went to conference committee, the Senate stripped out the enforcement provisions, which were basically saying that if you were going to advertise with a company, that they would have to attest to the fact that you are abiding by all city and county zoning laws.
And how would that company know if you were?
You would just have to tell them.
Tell them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm doing that. No problem. That's as good as it got. That's as good as it got.
And it passed.
It passed. It went into the final committee, closed door committee meeting, Hawaii style, and all the enforcement was stripped out and it was passed behind closed doors.
Yeah, I did a segment on that behind the doors committee. So we really do need some more transparency here, but it's not law yet, right? Because Governor Ige has not signed it, right?
That's correct.
He has until the 27th of this month, June, to veto it. So is there any kind of action to get people to encourage him to veto this bill?
Well, we're asking everyone who cares about their community to either call or write to Governor Ige's office and register their displeasure with this law. And I've learned, I've been involved with data collecting now, and I've learned that you don't want to do it because you don't know how you're going to write it, what you're going to write, what you're going to say, and it seems too hard. But all you have to do is send an email and in the subject title say, I oppose 1850, please veto it. And it's very simple because when I was doing this and collecting data, I'm sitting there and the bottom line was it was only the yes or no's is all that mattered. All the words didn't matter at all. It was yes or no. And
wow, so all that time we take crafting smart replies and all of that, doesn't matter. Just put it in the subject line and press send.
Press it, yes.
Yeah,
just say no, say yes, because if you say no on 5 pages or you say no in one sentence or one word, it's the same. It's weighed the same. So.
Okay, so that's coming up. Is there any other relief in sight for Kailua residents? I mean, it's not just for Kailua, but since you're on the Kailua Neighborhood Board, I'm saying that. I just want to clarify. So is there some way, I mean, you're...
Okay, yes, there is. Yes, there is. Last March of 2015, the Department of Planning and Permitting, who has to enforce this law, was asked what they needed to be able to enforce this law. And they crafted a bill that put enforcement language into our zoning law. And it basically just said that you had to have your identification numbers in your ads. As soon as your identification number is there, then it's easy to know whether you're legal or not. So that bill was introduced, it was vetted by Corp Council, which means it's legal to do, and it was introduced to the City Council, and it passed 9-0.
Wow.
However, a couple of those were with reservations. And that means, well, okay, I'll say yes, but maybe not. And Ikaika Anderson said he's going to hold it in his zoning committee because he had a better idea. And so he took this bill and it's in his zoning committee. And it's been in his zoning committee for 17 months now.
17 months.
And he won't let people vote on it. We need the council to vote on it. How can we vote for people if we don't know how they stand on an issue? And this is an election year. You know, this bill, Bill 22, should be pulled out of his committee and voted on by the full council.
I've never heard of a bill being out of for more than a session. Wow. So I wonder if that happens much. But anyway, we won't go there.
Okay.
So the main thing is...
I'm giving you a link to that so you can see that.
All right.
So.
Oh, that's what's on the stick. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will have all of the information that Vern is giving me up on my blog of the same name, Hawaii is My Mainland, which is at kauilucas.com. So I'll have links to all that tomorrow and with this show. So, okay, well, that's very interesting. All right, Ikaika Anderson, let's hold him accountable for getting this. Sounds like an excellent bill.
That's the bill that would stop all this madness. It would stop all the illegal activity. It would just empower the DPP.
So what do you think would happen as a practical matter?
Well, as a practical matter, this industry has been built up for 25 years now, almost 25 years. So there's a lot of economic activity that's been built up around this. And as people have to stop doing it, there will be some economic pain as we have to readjust back to a residential community as opposed to a commercial or tourist
Resort
area.
Resort area.
Yeah, and
so it's having these choices. You know, I have another screenshot about that shows the VRBO page of what Kailua looks like. I mean, we can understand that economic pain, but when you look at that, you have to say, wow. The pain of that is also the pain is the joy of preserving our neighborhoods and once again having actual residential neighborhoods. I mean, I've seen sales contracts where they calculate the value of the income of the property into the mortgage now. So as you say, it's 25 years, it's sort of become part of the discussion and the, you know, you as a buyer or qualified or not qualified in apartment on your income potential.
What?
So the ramifications of this are obviously, you know, significant.
yeah, and what I see happening is that I believe that real estate values will go down. I think there will be more rentals on the market, which will make it more affordable for people to rent in Kailua. And right now, there's this concept that you're doing this for extra money, and the little mom needs to make her mortgage. But my research shows that most of the vacation rentals are being done by wealthy people that are coming in, buying houses, breaking them into units and renting them, and they can pay for $1 million house in 8 years. Pay for it.
Is there any hope for homeowners here?
Oh, if we get rid of all the speculators. I mean, this starts going into Kaka'ako and every place else.
Waimanalo, we don't have to even go over the mountains. It's so bad in Waimanalo. We have a mutual friend who has finally given up trying to ever buy a home in Waimanalo.
that's true.
She was kicked out of escrow over the last 10 years, about 4 or 5 times. And so her agent said the last time, you know, the guy who beat you out this time, he's a Texan, and this is the 4th house in this neighborhood, the beach lots at Waimanalo, that this guy has purchased in the last 2 years. So that's where we are. 25% of the real estate sales last year, 25% were to non-resident owners. So I guess we really have to decide what's important.
And what's important, and as Governor Ige said, he said what's important is the kapuna, ourselves, and our children. And that was going to be his focus, but somewhere his legacy is being switched around, and I just hope he's aware of what his legacy will be if he signs Bill 1850 and allows this to continue on and on.
Well, it sounds like in addition to 1850, that really that Act 20, what was it, 22?
The Act 22.
22, and we have to get Ikaika Anderson to get that out for a vote and get that passed. So really, 9 of the council, it passed muster.
It passed muster on first reading, and there was nobody voted against it.
That speaks well of the council, actually.
Well, it does, except for I think they do that for first reading on every bill. It's just, but.
Okay, and so as far as we only have a couple minutes left, but As far as the building the community, rebuilding the community where these, as you said, it feels like it's about to explode. Is there some kind of mechanism, or are there efforts within your particular Kailua community yet to have this dialogue without pitting neighbor against neighbor, or is that just kind of how it has to be right now?
I believe, it's almost like you can't call it a community now. This is a resort area. We have hotels on Kailua Beach. They're just not big hotels. And we have people that have accosted their neighbors. We have police reports of women, old elderly women in their 80s, late 80s and 90s, that were accosted by neighbors because they thought they were the person that turned them in. Yeah, it's horrible. It's just, and so you go, how can our communities, they have to be based on law. And we're teaching our kids that laws don't even matter. It's whatever you can get away with. And the only solution to this is to enforce our laws. If we can enforce our laws, then we can entertain the idea of making adjustments to our laws, but only after we're enforcing the laws.
And your new dialogue with the Department of Planning and Permitting, with your new website, Stop Illegal Rentals, that sounds like it's pretty promising. It's only been up how long?
We got it up around March 1st.
Okay, so you've just had a couple of months, and it looks like a mechanism that will work.
Until they shut the inspectors down. That's why we need Bill 22, because then we don't need the inspectors going out and trespassing on people's property, trying to catch people that are being illegal. They can sit at their desks and find them on the internet and write them a letter saying, stop this or you're going to be fined.
Thanks so much for coming and talking with me today about this, Vern.
Okay.
Probably not the last time that you and I will be
maybe
discussing
not.
this. And by the way, that Stop Illegal Rentals, is that just for Kailua, or is that for...
I've been trying to get the other areas to start it up, and I will share all of my information with any other neighborhood board. But we've been very effective collecting data. We have an enormous amount of data.
Well, awesome. And thanks for taking your time. I know it's not a paid position. to really be the good citizen and help make our neighborhoods places we want to come home to and love and feel really good about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vern.
Thank you.